Morning, welcome to the Friday morning. Happy Friday, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're keeping safe. Hope you're keeping sane. Now, I want to talk about an article in the Daily Mail this morning, written by Andrew Neil. Now, if you don't know who Andrew Neil is, he's the sort of person they refer to as a gammon. In fact, he's so much of a gammon that he makes someone like myself look like a nice bit of finely sliced, fat-free turkey breast. Very seasonal indeed. Now, Andrew Neil has come out today and said that it's time to punish. Yes, punish Britain's 5 million vaccine refuseniks, those people who really don't want to go out and get the vaccine for whatever reason, personal choice, religion, whatever. He said they're putting us all at risk of more restrictions, and so on that basis we should curb their freedom. So I just wanted to, because this is something that I don't agree with, because I don't agree with mandatory vaccines, I certainly don't agree with punishing people for making a personal choice about having something injected into their bodies, I wanted to read on a little bit, really, find out what Andrew's point of view was. Maybe it might change my view a little bit. Who knows? Anyway, that's the joy of reading, isn't it? So he said, talks about last night. He went out to dinner in his home near the south of France. Oh yes, there you go. Nice humble brag there from Mr. Neil. A weird flex, but okay. And they're talking about how they scan the QR codes on his smartphone, and he was very relieved to know, very relieved. He said there was a sense of safety in knowing that the other diners had proved themselves to be fully vaccinated or had very recently tested negative or contracted the virus and recovered. Huge amount of sense of safety, huge amount of reassurance there, despite the fact that you can be asymptomatic, you can still carry the virus when you've had the jab, but he did say that it's a minor inconvenience. It's a minor inconvenience having your very whereabouts tracked via a GPRS device that you keep on you at all times. Minor inconvenience, though. Minor inconvenience being under constant surveillance and having your movements and whereabouts and expenditure tracked. Minor inconvenience when a new wave of the coronavirus pandemic is sweeping across the continent. Yes, this new wave of the coronavirus pandemic, which has seen very little in the increase of increase of case numbers. Certainly no increase in hospitalisations and deaths, and has seen a number of people get a sort of small cold or a bit of a sniffle or a little bit of a cough, from which they then recover and have antibodies, which is probably more effective, I would have thought, than any vaccine. But what do I know? I am no virologist. So he's basically going on and saying, well, given how easy it is, given how simple it is, and they're doing it across Europe, so it must be the right thing to do, mustn't it? Because Europeans never get anything wrong. Why can't we implement it here and say, look, if you haven't had the old 2 pricks in your arm, then you can't go and have dinner, or can't go to a club, can't go dancing, can't go singing down the aisles of Sainsbury's. That's a story for another day. He does go on to admit that it has shortcomings and blah, 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 and all the rest of it. But look, the bottom line is this, Mr. Neil, is that if you are curtailing people's freedoms based on the fact they're not willing to have a vaccine, and for full disclosure, I have had a couple of pricks, all right, for full disclosure. Now, if you're saying that we should curtail people's freedoms unless they have what is ultimately going to be, because no one's going to want to not do stuff with their life, a mandatory vaccine, that takes us to very, very dangerous places. We talk about having our freedoms limited and our liberties stripped away by having to wear face masks, or not being able to, go within a metre of each other and all the rest of it, right? But to actually have to have something injected into your body in order to live a free life, it's, to me, unfathomable where anybody, particularly someone who is, from what I can tell, quite knowledgeable, quite clever, well-travelled, and a journalist of many years. So this isn't a young, naive fool who thinks the world is all sunshine and rainbows. This guy knows. He's been there and done it, but yet he still believes that limiting the freedoms of people based on their lack of desire for whatever reason to have a vaccine injected into them, that's a good reason. That's a good reason to stop people living a free life in a free country that we purportedly still live in. So why do I have such an issue anyway with the vaccine pass, the old COVID pass, the old passport that we were told was off the table and was never going to happen because it was an infringement on our civil liberties? Why have I got such an objection with this? Because where does it stop? Once they have you over a barrel that every building you go into, every time you go to the pub, every time you go in a shop, every time you nip down your local massage parlour to whatever you do down there, it's not up to me, no judgment from my end, right? You have to scan yourself in, scan yourself out, let everyone know Let the government know. Let anyone who collects data know, and there's tons of them, where you are, what you're doing, what you're spending your money on at any given time. Where does that stop? You go to the pub on a Friday night, you have 3 or 4 pints of the old Stella, feeling a little bit merry, feeling quite happy. Your mates say, do you want to come into town? You go, yeah, go on in, I'll come out with you. I don't do that very much anymore, I'm nudging 40, but there you go. Used to do that. You get to the first bar, go to board another pint, and they go, oh, sorry, Mr. Bowyer. It looks like you've already had 4 pints this evening. A tracking app says you're in the pub for 3 hours. You've had 4 pints of lager. I did it via contactless payment because obviously there's no cash anymore. You've had too much. You're above the government recommended guidelines for alcohol consumption on any given day. Therefore, we can no longer serve you, but would you like a cup of tea? Now, this would sound quite extreme, like some sort of crazy conspiracy theory 2 years ago, wouldn't it? But can you see how many steps we've made towards this sort of totalitarian dystopian society where everything we do is tracked, and therefore everything we do is rationed, limited, recorded, registered. And then, having had my allocated, government appointed, government mandated and allowed 4 pints of the old Stella Artois, I then get a bit ill in a few weeks later, get a bit ill. They go to the doctors, and what do they say to you? They say, well, how much do you drink, Mr. Bowyer? I don't know. Pick up a number, pick a number. 10 units a day, 10 units a week, well, whatever. And they go, well, actually, we have reason to believe that you had 4 pints of Stella that night. We have reason to believe, because of your contactless payment, because we don't have cash anymore, that you bought a bottle of wine at Sainsbury's garage at 10 o'clock on a Friday night. Yeah, I'm guilty of that. Comes pre-chilled. Who can argue with that? The wine's terrible, but at least it's cold. So you obviously drink more than you're letting on. Therefore, we're going to refuse you treatment, or we're going to charge you for treatment, or we're going to dock some points off your effective social morality credit score. I don't think that's far too fetched, or too far fetched. In fact, that makes more sense. Don't think that's too far fetched. It's certainly not in China, and it'll creep across the world. And this COVID pass, I believe, is just the beginning of that. Yes, scanning it at the door of a restaurant or a bar is a minor imposition, but it's a very, very slippery slope, and it's one that once we start going down, we ain't going to get the traction to go back up. So, as I said before, passive non-conformity is the way forward. Don't get the app. Consider the details you're putting down if you have to write stuff down with a pen and a paper. I'm not saying falsify them, of course, I'm not going to say that. But have a think about it. Anyway, stay safe, stay sane. All the best.